The officer's voice was steady, but it stopped my heart. "Miss Quinn, we have recovered 2 unattended children. They say you are their aunt." My throat went dry. I gripped the phone until my knuckles turned white. I had told my sister, Sabrina. No, I said it clearly. I refused to be her safety net again. But she didn't care. She put Lily and Theo in a taxi anyway. She didn't even give the driver the right direction. They ended up on the wrong side of the city, alone and terrified. By the time I rushed to the police precinct, both kids were shaking. Their eyes were swollen from crying. They looked so small in that cold room. I held them close, and I felt a cold anger rising in my chest. For my whole life, I was the quiet sister, the one who fixed the messes, the one who always gave in. Not anymore. My sister thought she could force me to obey. She thought this was just another game. She was wrong. 3 days later, her entire life would collapse. And this time, I wasn't going to be the one to fix it. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I've spent my entire life being the understanding one. In my family, that was not a compliment. It was a job description. It was a trap. To understand why I finally said no, you have to understand the people who raised me. You have to understand the roles we were assigned before we could even speak. My sister, Sabrina, was the sun. Everything revolved around her. She was 2 years older than me. She was loud, demanding, and beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare. My parents, Evelyn and Charles, didn't just love her. They worshipped her. I was Harper. I was the shadow. I was the quiet one, the practical one, the one who didn't need extra attention. I was the one who remembered to take the trash out. I was the one who remembered birthdays. I was the one who stayed quiet so Sabrina could shine. My mother, Evelyn, had a saying she used whenever Sabrina made a mess. "Sabrina is just spirited," my mother would say, smiling as if it was a good thing. "She feels things deeply. She needs more support. You, Harper, you are so strong. You don't need us in the same way." They convinced me that my neglect was actually a compliment. They told me I was independent. But really, I was just alone. I remember a dinner from when I was 12 years old. It was a Tuesday. I had just gotten on a very hard history project. I had worked on it for 3 weeks. I was so proud. I put the paper on the kitchen table, right next to my father's plate. I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to say, "Good job, Harper." We sat down to eat. My father, Charles, picked up his fork. He looked at the paper for 1 second. "Nice work, Harper," he mumbled. Then, the back door slammed open. Sabrina walked in. She was 14. She was crying because a boy she liked didn't sit with her at lunch. The entire room shifted. My mother jumped up. My father put down his fork. "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" my mother asked, rushing to her. He ignored me. Sabrina wailed. "My life is over." For the next hour, my parents comforted her. They promised to buy her a new dress to make her feel better. They told her she was the most beautiful girl in school. They forgot about dinner. They forgot about me. I sat there and ate my cold food in silence. I looked at my history paper. It didn't matter. Nothing I did mattered if Sabrina was in the room. That was the pattern. Sabrina created a crisis, and my parents threw time, money, and love at her to fix it. I stayed quiet, did my work, and asked for nothing. But the worst betrayal happened when I was 18. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to study business. I knew my parents didn't have a lot of extra money because they spent so much on Sabrina, her car, her clothes, her trips. So I worked hard. I got a partial scholarship. I worked a summer job to save the rest. I had saved $5,000. It was in a joint savings account that my mother helped me open when I was 16. I checked the balance every week. That money was my freedom. 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave for school, I went to the bank to get a check for my tuition. The teller looked at me with a confused face. "Miss Quinn, the balance in this account is 0. My stomach dropped. I felt dizzy. "That's impossible," I said. "I saved that money." "Check again." "There was a withdrawal yesterday," she said. "By Evelyn Quinn." I drove home. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I walked into the kitchen. My mother was chopping vegetables. My father was reading the paper. Sabrina was there, too, looking at a brochure for a study abroad program in Italy. "Where is my money?" I asked. My voice was small, but I was furious. My mother didn't even turn around. "Harper, don't use that tone. You took my tuition money," I said, louder this time. $5,000. "Where is it?" My father sighed and put down his paper. He looked at me like I was being unreasonable. "We had to make some adjustments," he said. "Adjustments?" I asked. "Sabrina got into that fashion program in Milan," my mother said, finally turning to face me. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Harper." But the fees were due immediately. We didn't have the cash on hand. I stared at them. I looked at Sabrina. She was smirking. She didn't look guilty. She looked entitled. "That was my money," I said. "I earned it. I scrubbed floors and waited tables for that money. We will pay you back," my father said dismissively. "Eventually. But I have to pay my tuition now." I yelled. "Lower your voice," my mother snapped. "Stop being so selfish. Your sister needs this. You can take a student loan. You have good credit. Sabrina doesn't. You are the capable one, Harper. Be understanding. Be understanding." That phrase was a weapon. It meant shut up. It meant give Sabrina what she wants. I cried in my room that night. No one came to check on me. I heard them downstairs, laughing with Sabrina, planning her trip to Italy. They were celebrating her future with my money. I took out the loans. I went to college. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my books. I never saw that $5,000 again. When I asked about it a year later, my mother accused me of holding grudges. "Why do you always dwell on the past?" she asked me. "We are a family. We help each other." But they didn't help each other. I helped them. They used me. As we got older, it didn't change. It got worse. I built a stable life. I became a project manager at a logistics firm. I was good at my job because I was used to managing chaos. I had a nice apartment. I paid my own bills. I was responsible. Sabrina was a disaster. She married Michael, a good man who she didn't deserve. She had 2 kids, Lily and Theo. But she didn't want to be a mother. She wanted to be a star. She spent money she didn't have. She started businesses that failed after 2 months. She needed bailouts constantly. And my parents always looked to me. "Harper, can you lend your sister rent money? Harper, can you help Sabrina with her car payment? Harper, Sabrina is overwhelmed. Go help her clean her house." If I said no, I was the bad guy. "You have so much," my mother would say, looking around my clean, quiet apartment. "Why can't you share? Why are you so cold?" I wasn't cold. I was exhausted. I felt like I was being punished for being responsible. Because I didn't create drama, they assumed I didn't have feelings. Because I didn't scream and cry, they assumed I didn't hurt. I was 32 years old, and I was still the little girl sitting at the table with her history paper, waiting for someone to look at me. But they never looked. They only looked at Sabrina. And Sabrina knew it. She knew she could get away with anything. She knew that no matter how badly she messed up, our parents would defend her, and I would be expected to clean it up. She called me Saint Harper to her friends. She mocked my job. She mocked my boring life. "You need to live a little, Harper," she would say, sipping wine that I paid for. "You're so uptight." I took it. I swallowed the anger. I pushed it down deep. I told myself I was doing it for the family. I told myself it was better to keep the peace. But there was another reason I stayed. There was another reason I didn't cut them off completely. It wasn't for my parents. It wasn't for Sabrina. It was for the children. The only light in the darkness of my family was Lily and Theo. Lily was 7 years old. Theo was 4. They were Sabrina's children, but sometimes it felt like they were orphans living in her house. They were the only reason I answered the phone when my sister called. They were the only reason I went to the family dinners where my mother criticized my hair and my father ignored me. I loved those kids. I loved them with a fierceness that scared me sometimes. Lily was like me. She was quiet, observant, and anxious. She had big, dark eyes that saw too much. At 7 years old, she already knew how to walk on eggshells. She knew how to read her mother's moods. Theo was still small and sweet. He loved dinosaurs and soft blankets. He just wanted to be held. Sabrina didn't know how to hold them. To Sabrina, her children were accessories. They were props for her social media. She posted photos of them every day. "My little angels," she would write. "Mom life is the best life." #blessed in the photos. They looked perfect. Matching outfits, clean faces, bright smiles. But I knew the truth behind the photos. I knew that 5 minutes before the picture, Sabrina was screaming at Lily to stop moving. I knew that she pinched Theo's arm to make him look at the camera. I knew that as soon as she got the perfect shot, she would hand them an iPad and ignore them for hours while she edited the photo and counted her likes. I saw the way they looked at her. They didn't look at her with safety. They looked at her with fear. They were always waiting for her to snap. But when they saw me, their shoulders dropped. They breathed easier. Aunt Harper. It was the best sound in the world. When I visited, I didn't take photos. I got on the floor. I played with the dinosaurs. I read books to Lily. I listened to her tell me about school, asked her questions, and actually waited for the answer. Aunt Harper, look at my drawing, Lily would say. I see it, Lily. I love the blue you used here. Tell me about it, I would say. And she would beam. She was starving for attention. Real attention. Not the kind that came with a camera flash. Sabrina hated it. You spoil them, she would say, rolling her eyes. You make them soft. I listen to them. I would reply, whatever. Since you're here, can you watch them? I need to go get my nails done. And she would leave. She wouldn't ask. She would just grab her purse and walk out the door. This was the pattern. Sabrina treated me like a free nanny. She dumped them on me constantly. She didn't care about my schedule. She didn't care about my life. I remember one incident a year ago. It was a Friday night. I had a date. It was a first date with a nice man I met online. I was excited. I was dressed up. At 6 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it. Sabrina was standing there with the kids. She was wearing a cocktail dress. Surprise, she said. Here they are. What? I stared at her. Sabrina, I can't watch them tonight. I have a date in 30 minutes. Oh, cancel it, she said, waving her hand. It's probably going to be boring anyway. I have tickets to a concert with the girls. VIP tickets. I can't miss it. Sabrina, no, I said. I told you I was busy. Lily looked up at me. She was clutching her small backpack. Her lip was trembling. She knew she wasn't wanted. Don't be a bitch, Harper, Sabrina hissed. Where are they supposed to go? Michael is working late. Mom and Dad are in Florida. Do you want me to leave them on the street? She used her guilt trip like a knife. She knew I wouldn't turn the kids away. She knew I wouldn't let them see us fight. I looked at Lily's sad face. I looked at Theo, who was sucking his thumb. I sighed. Fine, leave them. Sabrina smiled. It was a cold, victorious smile. Thanks, sis. You're a lifesaver. Be a good aunt. Don't make this complicated. She turned and left. She didn't kiss the kids goodbye. I canceled my date. I ordered pizza. I built a fort in the living room with blankets. We watched a movie. That night, after Theo fell asleep, Lily sat next to me on the couch. Aunt Harper? She whispered. Yes, honey? Does Mommy hate us? My heart broke. I pulled her into a hug. No, sweetie. No. She loves you. She's just busy. I lied. I lied to protect her. But I hated myself for it. I wish you were my mommy, Lily whispered. I held her until she fell asleep. I looked at her sleeping face, and I felt the rage burning inside me. Sabrina didn't deserve them. She didn't deserve their love. She treated them like luggage she could drop off whenever they became heavy. I enabled it. For years, I enabled it. I told myself I was helping the kids. I told myself that if I said no, Sabrina would find someone worse to watch them, or she would leave them alone. My mother encouraged it, of course. It takes a village, Harper, my mother would say on the phone. You should be honored that your sister trusts you with her children. It's good practice for when you finally have your own. If you ever do. The little digs, the insults wrapped in advice. But the dynamic was shifting. The kids were getting older. They were starting to understand. And Sabrina was getting more reckless. She started dropping them off with less notice. Sometimes she would text me 5 minutes before arriving. Sometimes she would just show up. She started disappearing for longer. A quick dinner turned into an overnight stay. A weekend trip turned into 4 days. She stopped asking. She started demanding. I'm bringing the kids, she would text. Not a question. A statement. If I didn't reply instantly, she would call our mother. Then our mother would call me. Harper, why are you ignoring your sister? She needs you. It was a 2-against-1 attack. I was surrounded, but I was getting tired. I was 33 years old. I wanted my own life. I wanted to stop being the backup plan. I started to feel the resentment building. It was like a physical weight in my chest. I looked at Michael, Sabrina's husband. He was a good man, but he was weak. He worked 80 hours a week to pay for Sabrina's lifestyle. He was rarely home. He tried to keep her happy, but it was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. He knew she was using me. Sometimes, he would look at me with apologetic eyes when he came to pick them up. I'm sorry, Harper, he would say quietly. I didn't know she dropped them off. It's okay, Michael, I would say. But it wasn't okay. And then came the week of the presentation. I had a massive project at work. It was the biggest opportunity of my career. If I nailed this presentation, I would get a promotion. I would get a raise. I would finally have the respect I deserved in my professional life. I needed to work all weekend. I needed quiet. I needed focus. On Wednesday, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sabrina. Need you to take the kids this weekend, Friday to Sunday. Michael is away for work, and I have a spa retreat with the girls. Thanks. I stared at the screen. No question. No, please. Just an order. I thought about my presentation. I thought about my boss counting on me. I thought about the years of canceled dates, lost money, and silence. I looked at the text again. Thanks. Like it was already done. My hands started to shake. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from anger. I typed back. No. I stared at the word. It was so small. 2 letters. I added to it. I have to work. I cannot take them. You need to make other arrangements. I hit send. I put the phone down. My heart was pounding in my chest like a drum. I had done it. I had said no. I didn't know it then, but that single text message was the beginning of the end. It was the loose thread that would unravel the entire sweater. I thought the fight would be just another argument. I thought she would scream, and my mother would call, and I would have to stand my ground. I didn't know how far she would go. I didn't know that my no would turn into a taxi ride. I didn't know that my refusal would put Lily and Theo in danger. I was about to learn a hard lesson. When you stop letting people use you, they don't just walk away. They try to destroy you. And Sabrina was ready to burn everything down rather than hear the word no. The text message I sent was short. No, I stared at my phone. It sat on my desk like a ticking bomb. For a minute, nothing happened. The office was quiet. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner and the typing of my colleagues. I tried to focus on my computer screen. I had a spreadsheet open. I needed to analyze shipping routes for the presentation. Then, the phone rang. It wasn't a normal ring. It felt aggressive. The screen lit up with her name, Sabrina. My stomach twisted. This was the physical reaction I always had. My body was trained to be afraid of her anger. My heart raced. My palms sweated. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. 2 seconds later, it rang again. I pressed the ignore button. Then the text started flying in. Pick up the phone. Are you serious? Don't ignore me, Harper. You are being a selfish brat. I turned my phone over so I couldn't see the screen. I took a deep breath. Focus, I told myself. You have a job. You have a life. But you cannot ignore a hurricane. 10 minutes later, my desk phone rang. The landline at my work. I froze. Only my family had this number for emergencies. My boss, Mr. Henderson, was walking past my desk. He paused and looked at me. You going to get that, Harper?
Yes. Sorry, I said.
I picked up the receiver. Hello, Harper, what on earth is going on? It wasn't Sabrina. It was my mother, Evelyn. Her voice was sharp, tight with annoyance. Sabrina had called in the reinforcements. Hi, Mom, I said, keeping my voice low. I'm at work. Is this an emergency? Sabrina says you're refusing to help her, my mother said. She didn't ask for my side of the story. She just stated my crime. She has this retreat. It's been booked for months. She can't get a refund. She asked me 10 minutes ago, I said. She didn't ask months ago. She asked today. For this weekend. So? You're her sister. You're always available. I'm not available, I said. My voice shook a little, but I kept going. I have a major presentation on Monday. The regional director is flying in. I need to prep all weekend. I cannot watch Lily and Theo. There was a pause on the other end. A heavy, disappointed sigh. The sigh that usually made me crumble. Harper, my mother said, changing her tone. Now she sounded sad, like a victim. Why do you have to be so difficult? Your sister is under a lot of stress. Michael is never there. She needs a break. Why can't you just bring your laptop to her house, watch the kids, and work at the same time? No, Mom, I said. I can't focus with a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old running around. This is my career. It's important. More important than family, she snapped. The sadness was gone. The anger was back. You chose a job over your own flesh and blood? That's cold, Harper. Even for you. Even for you. The insult hit me hard. As if I was a cold person. As if I hadn't spent my entire 20s giving them money, time, and emotional energy. I am not doing it, I said. I felt tears pricking my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Sabrina needs to find a babysitter. Or she needs to stay home. She can't afford a babysitter, my mother argued. And she deserves this trip. If she can afford a spa retreat, she can afford a babysitter, I said. It was the most honest thing I had ever said to my mother. Silence. Absolute, shocked silence. I don't know who you think you are, my mother hissed, but you are ruining everything. If Sabrina has a breakdown because she didn't get this break, that is on your head. Do you hear me? I have to get back to work, I said. And then I did the unthinkable. I hung up on my mother. My hand was trembling so hard, I almost dropped the receiver. I stared at the phone, waiting for it to ring again. I expected the police to show up. I expected the sky to fall. But nothing happened. The office kept humming. Mr. Henderson kept walking. The world didn't end because I said no. I turned my cell phone off completely. I put it in my bag. I worked until 7 p.m. I drove home in silence. I didn't listen to the radio. I just listened to the sound of my own breathing. When I got to my apartment, I turned my phone back on. 14 missed calls. 20 texts. Most were from Sabrina. I hate you. You're jealous of my life. I hope you rot alone in that apartment. Then, one last text from her, sent at 8 p.m.
Fine.
Forget it. I'll figure it out. Thanks for nothing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was over. She had accepted it. She was angry, yes, but she was going to make other plans. Maybe she would cancel the trip. Maybe she would find a friend. I felt a strange mixture of guilt and relief. The guilt was programmed into me, but the relief, that was new. I had defended my boundaries. I had protected my time. I ordered takeout. I took a hot shower. I set up my living room for a weekend of work. I laid out my charts, my notes, my laptop. I told myself I did the right thing. She'll figure it out. I whispered to the empty room. I went to sleep that night feeling proud. I thought the worst was over. I thought the drama was finished. I was so wrong. I didn't know my sister. I didn't realize that to her. Figuring it out didn't mean taking responsibility. It meant punishing me. She wasn't going to cancel her trip. And she wasn't going to hire a babysitter. She was going to force my hand. She was going to make sure that even when I said no, the answer would end up being yes. Saturday morning was beautiful. The sun was streaming through my apartment windows. The city looked clean and bright. I woke up at 7 a.m. I felt rested. For the first time in years, I didn't have a knot of anxiety in my stomach on a Saturday. Usually, I would be at Sabrina's house by now, cleaning up breakfast dishes while she got ready to go out. But not today. Today was mine. I made a pot of strong coffee. I put on comfortable clothes. I sat at my dining table, surrounded by my work. I was building a new logistics model for our biggest client. It was complex, detailed work. I loved it. I loved the logic of it. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't manipulate you. If you put the right data in, you got the right answer out. I worked for 3 hours straight. I was in the zone. I felt capable. I felt smart. My phone was on the table, face up. It stayed silent. No calls from Mom. No texts from Sabrina.
See?
I thought. They survived. It's fine. At 10:45 a.m., my phone rang. I glanced at it, expecting to see a client or maybe a spam call. The screen said, unknown caller. I usually didn't answer those. But something made me pick it up. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was the strange, heavy silence of the morning. This is Harper, I said. Ms. Harper Quinn? A man's voice. Deep, serious, official. Yes. This is Officer Grant from the 12th Precinct. I'm calling regarding 2 minors found in your vicinity. A girl and a boy. My heart stopped. The coffee cup in my hand shook, spilling hot liquid onto my hand, but I didn't feel the burn.
What?
I whispered. Lily and Theo? They identified you as their aunt, the officer said. His tone was flat, not accusing but not friendly. They were found unattended on West 4th Street. The girl had a piece of paper with your name and this street written on it. My brain couldn't process the words. West 4th Street. That was my street. But my apartment building was at the far end, near the park. It was a long, busy road. I don't understand, I stammered. Where are they now? Are they hurt? They are in our custody at the precinct, Officer Grant said. They are physically unharmed, but very distressed. The girl says her mother put them in a taxi and sent them to you. She claims you were expecting them. The room spun. Sabrina, she had done it. She had actually done it. She ignored my text. She ignored my call. She packed them up, put them in a car with a stranger, and sent them to me like a package. But she didn't even give them the address. Just the street. I wasn't expecting them, I said, my voice breaking. I told her no. I told her I couldn't watch them. There was a silence on the line. The officer was judging me. Or maybe he was writing that down. Ms. Quinn, are you coming to collect them? Or do I need to contact Child Protective Services immediately? I'm coming, I said instantly. I'm coming right now. Don't call anyone. I'm on my way. I hung up. I grabbed my keys. I ran out the door. I didn't even put on shoes. I was wearing my house slippers. I didn't care. I drove to the precinct like a maniac. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight they hurt. My mind was racing, replaying the scenario. Sabrina must have told them everything was fine. Go to Aunt Harper's. She's waiting for you. She lied to them. She made them believe I wanted them. Then she put them in a taxi. Alone. Lily was 7. Theo was 4. In a city taxi. And she didn't give the driver the building number. Maybe she didn't remember it. Maybe she just assumed I would be standing outside, waiting, psychic. The taxi driver probably drove down my street, got confused, asked the kids where to stop. Lily wouldn't know. She would panic. The driver, frustrated, probably let them out on the corner. This is the street, kid. Get out. I imagined Theo standing on the sidewalk, holding his dinosaur. I imagined the cars rushing by. The noise. The fear. I felt sick. I physically gagged as I stopped at a red light. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was danger. This was criminal. I arrived at the precinct. I ran inside. The front desk was chaotic. Phones ringing, people arguing. I'm here for Lily and Theo Brennan, I told the desk sergeant. I'm the aunt. He looked at me. He looked at my slippers. He pointed to a door on the left. Officer Grant is in there. I pushed the door open. It was a small gray room. There was a metal table. Sitting on 2 metal chairs were Lily and Theo. They looked tiny. Theo was curled into a ball, his thumb in his mouth, his eyes wide and vacant. He looked like he was in shock. Lily was sitting up straight, trying to be brave. Her face was streaked with dirt and dried tears. She was holding Theo's hand so hard her knuckles were white. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Aunt Harper. She didn't run. She just wailed. It was a sound of pure relief and pure heartbreak. I rushed to them. I fell to my knees on the dirty floor and wrapped my arms around both of them. I've got you, I whispered, burying my face in their hair. They smelled like sweat and city exhaust. I've got you. You're safe. Mommy said you were outside. Lily sobbed into my shoulder. She said you were waiting, but we didn't see you. The man made us get out. He yelled at us. I know, baby. I know. I rocked them back and forth. We walked and walked, Lily said, her voice shaking. Theo was scared. I didn't know which house was yours. I tried to find the blue door, but there were so many doors. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Sabrina hadn't just neglected them. She had set them up to feel rejected by me. She made them think I wasn't there for them. Officer Grant was standing in the corner. He was a tall man with a kind but stern face. He was watching us closely. I looked up at him. I didn't try to hide my tears. She told me she would figure it out, I said to the officer. I told her I couldn't watch them. She sent them anyway. Officer Grant nodded slowly. He stepped closer. Ms. Quinn, he said quietly. This is serious. Abandoning minors. Endangerment. We need to file a report. I looked at Lily's terrified face. I looked at Theo, who hadn't made a sound. My old instinct kicked in. The instinct to protect Sabrina. The instinct to lie. If I file a report, she could get arrested. Mom will never forgive me. The family will be destroyed. I could lie. I could say it was a miscommunication. I could say I was late getting downstairs. I could fix it. I could take the blame, like I always did. I looked at Theo's arm. There was a small bruise. Not from abuse, but maybe from bumping into something when they were alone on the street. They could have been kidnapped. They could have been hit by a car. They could have vanished. Sabrina gambled with their lives because she wanted a massage. Something inside me snapped. The cord that tied me to my sister, the cord that made me her servant, finally broke. I stood up. I wiped my face. I looked at Officer Grant. Write it down, I said. My voice was cold and steady. Excuse me? Write it all down, I said. I want to file a formal statement. I did not agree to take them. She abandoned them. I want everything documented. Officer Grant pulled out a notepad. Are you sure, Ms. Quinn? This will trigger an investigation. Child Protective Services will be involved. I looked at the kids one more time. I'm sure, I said. Do it. I pulled out my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Sabrina. She was probably at the airport or already at the spa, checking to see if the package had been delivered. I didn't call her back. Instead, I sat down next to Lily and held her hand. It's going to be okay, I told her.
And I meant it.
But I knew that for it to be okay, everything else had to burn down first. Officer Grant sat across from me at the metal table. He had a form in front of him. I need you to tell me exactly what happened, Miss Quinn. Start from the beginning. I took a deep breath. I looked at Lily and Theo. A female officer had brought them some juice boxes and coloring books. They were in the corner of the room, quiet now, but still watching me. I pulled out my phone. I have the texts, I said. I unlocked the screen and handed it to Officer Grant. He scrolled through the messages. His face didn't move, but his eyes grew harder with every swipe. He saw my explanation about work. He saw Sabrina's insults. He saw her final text. Fine. Forget it. I'll figure it out. She acknowledged that you refused, Officer Grant said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said. She knew I wasn't going to be there. And yet, he said, looking at his notes, she put 2 children under the age of 8 into a taxicab. She gave the driver a street name, but no specific address. And she did not inform you they were coming. That is correct. Miss Quinn, do you know where your sister is right now? She is on her way to a spa retreat. In Arizona, I think. Her flight was at 11 a.m. Officer Grant looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:30 a.m. She's likely in the air, he said. We need to contact the father. Michael is in Chicago for business, I said. He doesn't know. He thinks the kids are with me, or that Sabrina made other plans. He never knows the details. She handles everything. I see. Officer Grant stood up. I am going to call Mrs. Brennan. If she is on a plane, it will go to voicemail. But we need to make the attempt. He dialed Sabrina's number on the precinct phone. He put it on speaker. I held my breath.
Ring, ring, ring.
I expected voicemail.
But then a click.
Hello. It was Sabrina.
Her voice was light, happy.
There was background noise, people talking, luggage was rolling. She hadn't taken off yet. She was probably in the lounge, drinking champagne. Officer Grant signaled for me to stay quiet. Mrs. Sabrina Brennan? Yes. Who is this? Her voice sharpened. She didn't like unknown numbers. This is Officer Grant from the 12th Precinct Police Department in New York. The silence on the other end was instant. The background noise seemed to fade away. Police? She asked. Her voice dropped an octave. Why are you calling me? Is it Harper? Did something happen to my sister? I almost laughed. Even now, she assumed I was the problem. She assumed I was the victim of some accident, and she would have to come save me. No, Mrs. Brennan. Your sister is here. I am calling about your children, Lily and Theo. The kids. She sounded confused. They're fine. They're with their aunt. They're at the police station, Officer Grant said. His voice was like steel. They were found wandering alone on West 4th Street. The taxi driver dropped them off on a street corner because he didn't have an address. They were distressed and unattended. What? Sabrina gasped. No. That's impossible. I told the driver. I wrote it down. You wrote down a street name, Mrs. Brennan, not a building number. And according to our records and the evidence provided by Miss Quinn, she explicitly told you she was not available to watch them. She's lying. Sabrina screamed. Her panic turned instantly into anger. She agreed. She always agrees. She's just trying to make me look bad because she's jealous. Officer Grant didn't blink. I have the text messages here, Mrs. Brennan. You acknowledged her refusal at 8 p.m. last night. Sabrina stammered. I thought she would change her mind. She's their aunt. She has to take them.
No, ma'am.
She does not. This incident is being documented as child abandonment and endangerment. Abandonment. Sabrina shrieked. I'm a good mother. You can't say that. I'm going on a wellness retreat. You placed 2 young children in a vehicle with a stranger and sent them to a location where no guardian was waiting. That is abandonment. Put Harper on, Sabrina demanded. Put her on right now. Officer Grant looked at me. I shook my head. I didn't want to speak to her. Miss Quinn is giving her statement, Officer Grant said. Child Protective Services has been notified. Ms. Reynolds from CPS is on her way here to assess the situation. You need to return to New York immediately, Mrs. Brennan. I can't, she yelled. The doors are closing. I'm in first class. This trip cost $3,000. That is your choice, ma'am. But if you are not here, temporary custody decisions will be made without you. And this conversation is being recorded. There was a pause. I heard a flight attendant in the background saying, "Ma'am, you need to turn off your phone. You did this to me." Sabrina screamed, presumably at me, even though I hadn't said a
word.
"You did this." The line went dead. Officer Grant hung up the phone. He looked at me. "She hung up," he said flatly. "She chose the flight." I felt a wave of nausea. She chose the trip. She knew her kids were at a police station, and she stayed on the plane. "What happens now?" I asked. "Ms. Reynolds from CPS will be here in 20 minutes, he said. "Since you are the aunt and you are here, we will likely release them into your emergency care for the weekend, pending the investigation. Unless you are unable to take them." I looked at Lily and Theo. Lily was coloring a picture of a house. She was drawing a big black fence around it. "I'll take them," I said. "I'm not refusing them. I never refuse the children. I refuse my sister's disrespect. But I won't leave them here." "Good," Officer Grant said. "But understand this, Ms. Quinn. This isn't a family favor anymore. This is a legal case. You are now a witness against your sister." "I know," I said. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt determined. The next 6 hours were a blur of paperwork. Ms. Reynolds from CPS was a small, sharp woman with kind eyes.
She interviewed me.
She interviewed Lily alone. She spoke to Officer Grant. She declared that the children were to stay with me for the next 72 hours under an emergency safety plan. Sabrina was not allowed to remove them until a hearing was held on Monday. I took the kids home. My apartment, which I had cleaned and prepped for work, became a bunker. I ordered pizza again. I let them watch TV. I didn't get any work done on my presentation, but I didn't care. I put my phone on the kitchen counter. It had been buzzing nonstop. At 8 p.m., Michael called. I picked it up. "Harper." His voice sounded wrecked. He sounded like he had been crying. "Hi, Michael. I'm at the airport in Chicago," he said. "I'm flying back now. The police called me. Is it true?" "Yes, Michael. It's true." "She put them in a taxi?" "Alone." "Yes." He let out a long, ragged breath. "She told me you were coming to pick them up. She said you begged to have them for the weekend, because you miss them." "She lied, Michael. I told her I had to work. I told her no." "I know," he whispered. "I believe you. I've known for a long time that she twists things. But this," he trailed off. "Are they okay?" "They're safe. They're sleeping." Lily was scared, but she's okay now. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for being there. Harper, I need a favor." "What?" "I need the report. The police report. And the text messages. Can you keep them for me?" I paused. "Why?" "Because I'm done," Michael said.
His voice was stronger now.
"I can't do this anymore. I can't let her do this to them. I'm filing for full custody on Monday. But I need proof. If I don't have proof, her lawyer will destroy me. She's already texting me, saying you kidnapped them. I didn't kidnap them. I know, but that's her story. She's spinning it. Please, Harper. Don't protect her this time. Help me save my kids." "I will," I said. "I'll give you everything." We hung up. I felt a surge of hope. Michael was finally waking up. But then the other phone call came. My mother. I knew I shouldn't answer. I knew it would be poison. But a part of me, the little girl who just wanted her mom to love her, picked up the phone. "Hello. How could you?" Her voice wasn't a scream. It was a cold, low hiss. It was scarier than a scream. "Mom, listen." "No, you listen." She cut me off. "Sabrina just called me from the plane. She is hysterical. She is sobbing. She said you called the police on her. You had her treated like a criminal. She broke the law, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She abandoned Lily and Theo on a street corner. They were alone. Anything could have happened." "Oh, stop being dramatic," my mother snapped. "It was a mistake. The taxi driver was stupid. Sabrina made a logistical error. That's all." "A logistical error?" I felt my face getting hot. "Mom, they're children, not packages. And she lied to me. She tried to force me to take them after I said no. Because you were being selfish," my mother yelled. "If you had just said yes like a good sister, none of this would have happened. This is your fault, Harper. You caused this scene." I stood in my kitchen, gripping the granite countertop. "I caused it?" I asked. "I caused her to get on a plane while her children were at a police station? She deserves a break," my mother defended her. "She has a hard life. You don't understand because you don't have children. You don't know the pressure. I know enough to not leave them on a sidewalk, I said. You are jealous, my mother spat. The words hung in the air like smoke. You have always been jealous of her. You're jealous of her beauty. You're jealous that she has a husband and children. You wanted to humiliate her. You wanted to ruin her reputation. The accusation was so absurd, so cruel, that it actually cleared my head. I looked around my quiet, safe apartment. I thought about the peace I felt when I wasn't around them. I thought about my job, my independence. I wasn't jealous. I was free, and they hated it. I'm not jealous, Mom, I said calmly. I'm done. What does that mean? It means I'm not playing this game anymore. I gave the evidence to the police. I'm going to give it to Michael. And if CPS asks me to testify, I will tell them the truth. I will tell them everything about the money you stole from me, about how you enable her. All of it. You wouldn't dare, my mother whispered. You will destroy this family. The family is already destroyed, I said. Sabrina destroyed it. I'm just refusing to live in the wreckage. If you do this, my mother said, her voice shaking with rage, don't bother coming for Christmas. Don't bother calling us. You are dead to us. My heart hurt. It was a sharp, physical pain in my chest to hear your own mother say those words. But then I looked into the living room. I saw Lily asleep on the sofa, her hand tucked under her cheek. She looked safe. If being dead to my parents meant Lily and Theo were safe, then so be it. Goodbye, Mom, I said. I hung up the phone, and then I blocked the number. I stared at the phone for a long time. I waited to feel regret. I waited to feel the panic of being an orphan, but all I felt was silence. The phone didn't ring again. I walked into the living room and sat on the floor next to the sleeping kids. I pulled a blanket over Theo. I had lost my parents. I had lost my sister. But I looked at the two little faces breathing softly in the dim light. I had saved them. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was. I wasn't the shadow. I wasn't the doormat. I was the wall standing between these kids and the chaos. And I wasn't going to move. The custody hearing took place 10 days later. Walking into the family court building felt like walking into a hospital. The walls were gray. The air was cold. Everyone looked tired. I walked in with Michael. He looked different than before. He was wearing a dark suit. He had shaved. He wasn't the exhausted, defeated man I was used to seeing. He looked focused. Are you ready? He asked me in the hallway. Yes, I said. We walked into the courtroom. Sabrina was already there. If I didn't know her, I would have felt sorry for her. She was dressed like a character from a sad movie. She wore a soft, pale blue cardigan and a modest skirt. She wore a pearl necklace. Her hair was pulled back loosely. She held a tissue in her hand, dabbing at eyes that weren't crying. She was playing the role of the devastated mother. My mother and father were sitting behind her. When I walked in, my mother looked at me with eyes full of hate. She turned her head away sharply, refusing to acknowledge my existence. My father stared at the floor. I sat behind Michael. I was a witness. I was the enemy. The hearing began. Sabrina's lawyer stood up first. He was a loud man with a shiny suit. He painted a picture of a tragic misunderstanding. Your Honor, he said, gesturing to Sabrina, Mrs. Brennan is a loving, devoted mother. She made a simple scheduling error. She believed, truly believed, that her sister, who has no children of her own and perhaps doesn't understand the chaos of parenting, had agreed to help. This was a communication breakdown, not a crime. He turned and pointed a finger at me. The aunt, Harper Quinn, is a bitter woman, he continued. She is jealous of her sister's happiness. She used a moment of confusion to humiliate Mrs. Brennan. She called the police instead of calling the mother. This was a vindictive act. Sabrina sniffled loudly. My mother patted her shoulder. I sat still. My hands were folded in my lap. I didn't react. A year ago, I would have cried. I would have wanted to scream. That's not true. But today, I knew something they didn't. I knew that facts speak louder than tears. Then Michael's attorney, Miss Foster, stood up.
She didn't make a big speech.
She just laid out the paper. I would like to enter into evidence the police report from the 12th precinct, she said calmly, and the sworn statement from Officer Grant, and the report from Ms. Reynolds at Child Protective Services. She placed the documents on the judge's bench. And she added, I have the transcript of the text messages between Harper Quinn and Sabrina Brennan from the night before the incident. She projected the texts onto a screen. The room went silent. There, in black and white, were my words. No.
I have to work.
I cannot take them. And Sabrina's reply, fine, forget it. I'll figure it out. There was no ambiguity. There was no misunderstanding. Miss Foster looked at Sabrina. Mrs. Brennan, you acknowledged that your sister said no. You knew she wasn't expecting the children. Yet you put a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old in a taxi with a stranger. You gave the driver no specific address. And then you boarded a plane to Arizona. Sabrina's lawyer tried to object. She was under stress. Stress is not an excuse for abandonment, Miss Foster said sharply. Then they called the witnesses. Officer Grant took the stand. He was in his uniform. He looked giant next to Sabrina. Officer, describe the condition of the children when you found them, Miss Foster asked. They were terrified, Officer Grant said. His voice filled the room. They were shivering. The boy was nonverbal from shock. They were on a busy street corner in downtown Manhattan. If a patrol car hadn't spotted them, or if a predator had found them first, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Then it was my turn. I call Harper Quinn to the stand. I walked up. I swore to tell the truth. I sat down. I looked at the judge. She was a woman with gray hair and glasses. She was reading my file. Miss Quinn, Miss Foster asked, did you agree to babysit on the weekend in question? No, I said clearly. I said no repeatedly. Why did you call the police instead of your sister? Sabrina's lawyer asked me on cross-examination. He tried to make me look cruel. I called the police because I found 2 abandoned children, I said. And when the officer called my sister, she didn't come back. She stayed on the plane. I looked directly at Sabrina. She stopped sniffling. She glared at me with pure venom. I chose safety over my sister's feelings, I said. And I would do it again. My mother gasped in the back row. The judge looked at me. She looked at Sabrina. She looked at the text on the screen. She closed the file. The courtroom was quiet. The only sound was the air conditioner. Judge Keaton adjusted her glasses. She didn't look at the lawyers. She looked directly at Sabrina. Mrs. Brennan, the judge began. Her voice was calm, but heavy. I have sat on this bench for 20 years. I have seen many parents make mistakes. I have seen parents who are poor, parents who are sick, parents who are overwhelmed. She paused. But what I see here is not a mistake. It is arrogance. Sabrina stiffened. The fake tears stopped. You treated your children like inconveniences. The judge continued. You ignored a direct refusal from their caregiver. You endangered their lives so you could go to a spa. And when the police called you, you refused to return. The judge picked up her gavel. The court finds that Sabrina Brennan poses a risk of neglect. Primary physical and legal custody is awarded to the father, Michael Brennan, effective immediately. Sabrina let out a sharp cry.
What? No.
You can't. Mrs. Brennan will have supervised visitation only, the judge said, ignoring the outburst. 2 hours a week, supervised by a court-approved monitor. This will remain in effect until she completes a 12-week parenting course and a psychological evaluation. This is ridiculous. Sabrina screamed. She stood up. Her mask fell off completely. The sweet, sad mother was gone. The bully was back. I am a good mother. My sister is a liar. She planned this. Sit down, Mrs. Brennan, or I will hold you in contempt, the judge warned. Sabrina slumped back into her chair. She looked at her lawyer, but he just shook his head. There was nothing he could do against the evidence. Court is adjourned, the judge said. The gavel hit the wood.
Bang.
It was the sound of a heavy door closing. It was the sound of my freedom. We walked out into the hallway. Michael let out a long breath. He looked like a man who had just put down a heavy backpack he had been carrying for 10 years. Thank you, he said to me. I couldn't have done this without you. Go be a dad, I told him. Go get them. He walked away to sign the papers. I turned to leave. Harper. I stopped. I knew that voice. Sabrina was marching down the hallway toward me. My parents were right behind her. Sabrina's face was red. Her perfect hair was messy. She looked wild. She stopped 2 feet from me. She pointed a finger in my face. You ruined my life, she spat. Are you happy now? You took my kids. You humiliated me. You ruined everything. My mother stepped up beside her. You are a disgrace, my mother hissed. Don't ever call us. You have no family. I looked at them. I looked at my sister, who still took no responsibility. I looked at my mother, who would defend Sabrina even if she committed murder. I waited for the fear. I waited for the guilt to crush me. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt tall. I felt calm. I didn't ruin your life, Sabrina, I said.
My voice was steady.
I didn't shout. You did.
You put them in that taxi.
You stayed on the plane. You're a jealous, bitter bitch. Sabrina screamed. People in the hallway were staring. And you, I said, looking at my mother. You enabled her. You taught her that she could do anything and someone else would pay the price. Well, I'm done paying. You'll be sorry, my father grumbled. It was the first time he spoke. No, I said. I won't. I looked at Sabrina. One last time. You almost ruined their lives, I said. Be glad I was there to catch them. Because if I hadn't been home, if I hadn't answered that phone, you wouldn't just be losing custody. You'd be in jail. She opened her mouth to scream again, but she had no words. She just stared at me, shaking with impotent rage. I turned around. I walked down the long hallway toward the exit. I could hear them whispering behind me, but their voices sounded far away, like a radio station that was losing its signal. I pushed open the heavy doors and stepped out onto the street. The sun was shining. The air was fresh. I took a deep breath. It was the first breath of my real life. 6 weeks later, I sat in Michael's living room. It was different now. The house used to feel like a museum. White furniture, fragile decorations, everything for show. Now there were toys on the rug. There were drawings on the fridge. It looked like a home. Lily and Theo were sitting on the floor, building a castle with blocks. Look, Aunt Harper, Theo yelled. It's a fortress. It's very strong, I said, smiling. Lily looked up. Her eyes were bright. The dark circles were gone. Daddy is making tacos, she said. My favorite, I said. Michael walked in from the kitchen. He looked tired, but it was a good tired. The tired of a parent who is actually parenting. Dinner in 5, he said. He sat down on the arm of the sofa next to me. How are the visits going? I asked quietly. Okay, Michael said. She comes to the center. She brings gifts. She takes photos for Instagram, but she's not allowed to post them anymore. The kids are polite, but they don't run to her. Do they miss her? They miss the idea of her, Michael said. But they don't miss the yelling. The nightmares have stopped, Harper. Theo sleeps through the night now. I nodded. That was all that mattered. My parents had kept their promise. They hadn't called me. I hadn't called them. Christmas was coming up. It would be the first Christmas I didn't spend running around my parents' house, cooking the food while Sabrina opened presents. I was going to spend it here, with Michael, Lily, and Theo. Or maybe I would go on a trip. Maybe I would go to a spa. The irony made me smile. I realized that losing my family was the price I had to pay to save these kids. And it was a bargain. I watched Lily place a block on top of the tower. It wobbled, but it didn't fall. She looked at me and grinned. I did it. You sure did, I said. I thought about the word no for 33 years. I thought no was a bad word. I thought it meant I was selfish. I thought it meant I was unlovable. But I was wrong. No was a shield. No was a wall that kept the bad things out and the good things safe. No was the most powerful word I knew. I felt a small hand on my knee. It was Lily. She had climbed up onto the sofa. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Aunt Harper. Yeah, kiddo? I feel safe now, she whispered. Tears pricked my eyes, but they were happy tears. I wrapped my arm around her. I know, I said. Me too. The storm was over. The house was quiet. And for the first time, the silence wasn't empty. It was full of peace. I said no for the first time, and my sister punished me with 2 crying children in a taxi. She thought she could break me. She thought I would fold like I always did. But what she didn't know was that her cruelty would become their rescue. I lost my parents. I lost my sister. I lost the illusion of a happy family. But I saved the 2 people who actually mattered. And I found myself. If you are the one who always gives in, if you are the one who carries the burden to keep the peace, listen to me. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. Because sometimes you have to burn the bridge to stop the enemy from crossing. And the peace you find on the other side, it is worth every single flame.